Do Something by Matthew West. I love that song. It just captures so clearly what we've been talking about all morning. If you're just tuning in, I'll give you the review. I've only got 6 minutes left. We've been going through wisdom in the book of James. How do we live wisely according to the brother of Jesus himself? And the brother of Jesus, James, says, well, look at what Jesus says in his sermon. Look at what Proverbs says, and try and live a holistic, integrated life striving towards perfection. That's completeness. Don't let sin fracture and break apart you from yourself. You're created to love and honor God, to glorify God with your soul, with your body, with your tongue. And sin breaks apart all of those things to where we say we love God and then we live against him. We say we love our neighbors and we speak words against them. We say we love the hurt and the oppressed, and then we spend time with those in our own, we spend all of our time with those in our own social class, with those within our own wealth and financial status. And those are things we need to be cautious against, because it blinds us to those that are hurting and those that are of less than us. How can we care for them? Matthew West says, go out and do something. And I'd encourage you to do the same. Follow what James says is the law of liberty. We're free from the condemnation of the law. We don't do something so that we will be saved. We're saved by our faith, and faith alone, because of the work of Christ alone on the cross and in his perfect life, rising from the dead, defeating death. But that doesn't mean we don't live in a life of love and gratitude, doing what Jesus says. If we love him, we follow his commandments. And so we are free, not from the law, but free to live in following the law of God. And that's a beautiful thing. And that's what the wise person does. It's a foolish thing to make yourself out as the own law, or as to judge the law. But the wise person also recognizes that God is above and working through our trials and suffering. And it's why James can say in the beginning of the letter that it's going to produce a steadfastness, even in difficult times. Because you don't know how God is changing and can change your circumstances in a moment. He can change your situation. I had a friend call me up a few weeks ago and say, Zach, I don't know what I'm going to do. My landlord just said I only have a month left, and I've got a family. I have a wife and kids, and I can't live here anymore. And I don't know where I'm going to live next month. It's not a lot of time. To move somewhere else, I'd have to find a new job. All kinds of circumstances stacking up against him. I didn't have an answer for him. I don't have a simple solution to every difficult situation, but I prayed with him, and I told him, my friend, this is the test. This is where our faith gets tried to see if we can produce and show that we are steadfast. We have a confident assurance in who God is in our life. And a few weeks later, before the deadline had reached and he had to move out, someone called him up from church and said, hey, I've got a place for you to stay. Won't even charge you rent. Just pay for the utilities. We've got a place prepared for you. It worked out. But it takes weeks, sometimes months, sometimes years before that resolution comes. So put your faith in God and your trust in God, not in your own ability to plan what your future is. That's why James says in chapter 4, verse 13, come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. That's what the reality is. You don't know what tomorrow will bring. If there is any proof or evidence that you need of that, look back on 2020. We're only 6 months into the year. This year itself, with this pandemic and all of the crazy world-changing events that have happened just in the last 6 months, none of this was anticipated from an earthly human perspective. God knows the future. It's in his hands right now. But we can't know exactly when a pandemic like this is going to strike. And that shouldn't cause fear in us at all. Instead, it should cause us to say, as it says in verse 15, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. If the Lord wills. Have that openness every day in your hands so that you can accept where God is taking you. And I close with this in James chapter 5. He says, "Be patient, brothers, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, being patient about it until it receives the early and late rains. You also be patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand." That is what we look forward to. That's what gives us strength every day to bear the trials, because the Lord is coming and he is our hope. He is our love. He is whom we wait for. As a bride waits for her bridegroom, we wait for Christ to come, and he is coming. And so I want to leave you with that today. I want to make a quick recommendation actually before I go. I just watched this Netflix program called The American Gospel last night with my father, and it's fantastic. If you want to hear an important caution and words of concern about the false gospels that are preached in America today, and then also just get 2.5 hours of the true biblical gospel, please check that out. It's called The American Gospel, and it's on Netflix. I encourage you to listen to that. Until then, and until next week, put your faith in Christ, put your hope in his coming, and tune in again next week, Wednesday at 9 o'clock, to see the glory